The galaxy had grown silent to the sound of mercy. For hundreds of years, the Valoran Dominion ruled the stars with cold pride. They were tall, scaled beings who believed only in strength. To them, kindness was weakness and compassion was a waste of time. Many worlds had bowed before them. Some were taken by force, others by fear. They controlled trade, resources, and even history. Their fleets spread like shadows through the void, leaving behind smoke and obedience. Among those who suffered under their rule was a small, peaceful planet named Ketra. It was a world of gentle winds, crystal oceans, and bright forests that glowed at night. The people of Ketra, called Ketrans, were known for their art and songs. They believed words could solve everything, but words meant nothing to the Velerans. The Velerans landed on Ketra's capital city one silent dawn. They promised order but brought despair. Factories replaced gardens. Temples became storage halls. The songs of the Ketrans were silenced under the heavy steps of armored boots. The skies turned gray. Still, the Ketrans tried to believe. They sent envoys to beg for peace. They offered gold, crystals, and trade. The Valoran governor only laughed. "Mercy is for the strong," he said. "And you are not strong." Soon, entire families were separated. The Ketrans, who never learned to fight, were left with only one thing: hope that someone somewhere might hear them. A small group of scientists and priests gathered secretly in an old observatory near the edge of the planet. Their leader, Mira, was a calm woman with silver eyes and a voice like quiet rain. She looked at the night sky, whispering, "There must be someone out there who still believes in mercy." With the last of their power cells, they built a transmitter, old, weak, but enough to send one message. The transmission lasted only a few seconds. Mira's voice spoke across the stars, soft but desperate. "We are from the world of Ketra. We seek mercy. If any still believe in peace, please hear us." The signal was sent, then the tower went dark. No one knew if anyone had heard. Days turned to weeks. Hope dimmed. But far away, in a blue system surrounded by dust and silence, the signal reached a small listening station on Earth's moon. The technician on duty almost ignored it. The computers often picked up stray cosmic noise, but the message repeated once before vanishing again. It wasn't noise. It was a voice. Within hours, the signal reached the Global Communication Command on Earth. Scientists replayed it again and again, clearing the static. The message was faint but clear. "We seek mercy." News spread through scientific circles first, then across governments. At first, many thought it was fake. Then astronomers confirmed the signal came from a real world over 80 light-years away. Humanity had made contact before, with traders, explorers, and distant colonies. But this was different. No one had ever asked Earth for mercy. A week later, the World Council met in Geneva. Leaders from every nation sat under bright lights listening to the short message. Some argued that Earth should stay out of alien wars. "We are still growing," said one. "We have enough problems of our own." Others disagreed. "If we ignore this, what does it say about us?" asked an old general. "We once begged for mercy in our own wars. Someone answered us then, why shouldn't we now?" At the back of the room sat Commander Reed, a quiet man who had served in the Peace Fleet for years. He had seen both kindness and cruelty among the stars. When asked for his opinion, he spoke simply, "Mercy is not a word. It is a promise. If we choose to hear them, we must be ready to keep that promise." His words settled the argument. Earth would answer, but not with speeches. They would send their own kind of mercy, one that protected, not pleaded. 3 months later, in the vast shipyards of Luna Station, massive vessels stood ready. The United Earth Defense Fleet was preparing for its first large-scale mission beyond known space. Pilots, engineers, medics, and scientists volunteered by the thousands. Some joined for honor, others for curiosity, and some simply because they couldn't bear the idea of silence in the face of suffering. Commander Reed stood on the observation deck, looking at the ships lined up against the dark. Each bore the blue emblem of Earth, a symbol of unity. Beside him stood Captain Lonnie, a calm and sharp-minded officer. "We don't know what we're flying into," she said quietly. "We rarely do," Reed replied with a faint smile. "But mercy is worth the risk." As the fleet prepared to leave, the people of Earth watched from every continent. Children waved at the sky. Teachers paused their lessons, and even the oceans reflected the bright trails of engines. Humanity had once fought wars among themselves. Now they were united by a cause greater than borders or flags. Weeks passed as the fleet crossed deep space. The crew members trained, studied the limited data about Ketra, and prepared for any outcome. In the mess hall, conversations always returned to one question: what will we find? Some believed the aliens would already be gone. Others hoped they would arrive in time to save them. But no one could predict what waited. One night, Reed walked through the quiet corridors of his ship, Solar Dawn. The stars outside drifted like frozen sparks. He paused at the window and whispered to himself, "They asked for mercy. I hope we're worthy of giving it." At last, after 40 days of travel, the fleet entered the Ketra system. The first view left them silent. The planet's surface glowed faintly blue, but parts of it were black, burned regions visible even from orbit. Massive ships hovered above it, clearly Valoran. Their armor shone like silver blades, cold and precise. Lonnie's voice broke the silence. "Looks like we're late." "Maybe not," Reed said. "There's still light down there. Someone's alive." They scanned the planet and detected faint energy readings from the old observatory, the same place the signal had come from. Reed ordered a small team to descend. Their landing craft moved quietly through the clouds, avoiding Valoran patrols. When they reached the ground, they saw the ruins of what once had been a beautiful city. Towers half broken, streets covered in dust, and silence everywhere. Then from the shadows a group of thin figures appeared. The Ketrans. Their skin shimmered faintly like glass, and their large eyes reflected the soft light of the humans' helmets. They looked fragile, almost transparent, but still alive. One of them stepped forward. It was Mira. She could barely stand, but when she saw the Earth emblem on their suits, tears filled her eyes. "You came," she whispered, her voice shaking. Reed knelt to meet her gaze. "We heard your message." Mira looked at the soldiers behind him, their armor, their calm posture, their strange strength. "We asked for mercy," she said softly. Reed nodded. "And mercy is what we bring. But to keep it, we must be ready to fight for it." She didn't fully understand his words, but she felt the warmth in his tone. After so much darkness, the humans' arrival felt like light breaking through clouds. As night fell on Ketra, human ships spread through the skies, creating a shield above the planet. For the first time in many years, the Ketrans looked up and saw hope instead of fear. High above, in orbit, Valoran scanners detected the human fleet. They didn't know who these newcomers were, but they soon would. Commander Reed stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the stars slowly move. His crew waited for his next command. He spoke quietly, yet his words carried across every channel. They desired mercy. Let's show them what mercy truly means. The fleet adjusted its formation, engines glowing brighter. The quiet plea of one peaceful world had reached humanity, and humanity had answered. The fleet from Earth now circled the blue planet of Ketra like silent guardians. Dozens of ships hung in the sky, each one shining with the calm light of human engineering. Below them, the wounded world slowly began to breathe again. Commander Reed stood in the command room of his flagship, Solar Dawn. The screens around him showed the surface, burned forests, broken cities, and the soft glow of the surviving Ketran shelters. "Status report," he said quietly. Captain Lonnie replied, her tone steady. "Atmospheric scans show clean air. The Ketrans are gathering near the observatory ruins. They are weak but alive. The Valoran ships remain in the outer orbit, no movement yet." Reed studied the readings. "They're watching us," he said. "Waiting to see if we're a threat." Lonnie looked at him with concern. "Do you think they'll attack?" He didn't answer right away. Outside the window, the stars looked peaceful, but Reed knew peace never lasted long when power was involved. "If they believe mercy is weakness," he said, "then yes, they will." Down on the surface, human engineers and medics worked beside the Ketrans. They repaired small generators, cleaned water systems, and handed out nutrient packs. The Ketrans had never seen such organized care. Mira watched the humans move with quiet strength. Their voices were calm, their eyes focused. Even when tired, they smiled and helped one another. She walked beside a young human technician named Tom. He was showing Ketran children how to operate a small solar lamp. "Why do you help us?" she asked softly. "You don't know us. You crossed the stars for us." Tom smiled and said, "Because we remember what it feels like to ask for help and get none. We won't let that happen again. To anyone." Mira nodded slowly, her heart feeling something new. Trust. Back on Solar Dawn, the atmosphere grew tense. The Valoran fleet was finally moving. Scanners showed 15 large warships approaching slowly, their engines glowing red. Lonnie turned to Reed. "They're signaling us. Commander." "Open the channel," Reed said. A holographic image appeared, tall, scaled, and sharp-eyed. It was a Valoran commander dressed in silver armor. His voice was cold and heavy with arrogance. "I am Commander Varen of the Valoran Dominion. You are trespassing in controlled space. Withdraw immediately or be removed." Reed stood calm. "This planet sent a message asking for mercy. We heard it. Your forces are violating their rights. We are here to ensure their safety." Varen's eyes narrowed. "Mercy? You mistake submission for peace. The weak do not deserve protection, they serve the strong. That is the rule of the stars." Reed replied evenly. "Then maybe the stars need new rules." For a moment the Valoran said nothing. Then he laughed, a low, cruel sound. "You will learn soon enough, human." The hologram faded. The silence that followed felt heavier than any sound. Lonnie broke it quietly. "They'll attack," Reed nodded. "Then we hold our ground. Shields up. Prepare the fleet for defense, not destruction. We are here to protect, not to conquer." While preparations began, the Ketrans below could feel the sky trembling. Mira looked up as streaks of light crossed the clouds. Human ships were taking formation above their planet. She saw no fear in their movements, only purpose. One of her elders approached. "They will bring war," he whispered in worry. Mira shook her head. "They bring protection. Sometimes peace must be guarded." The elder looked uncertain but said nothing more. On the command deck, Lonnie monitored the fleet's positions. The humans had formed a wide defensive line around the planet, like a wall of silver lights. Reed moved closer to the main screen. "Keep communication lines open," he said. "No one fires unless fired upon." Minutes turned to hours. The Valoran fleet continued to move closer, testing human patience. Finally, 3 smaller Valoran ships advanced ahead of the main group. "They're scanning our ships," said Lonnie. "They want to test our response." "Let them," Reed said. "They'll find we are patient but not blind." When the Valorans fired a warning shot across the outer edge of the fleet, the energy bolt exploded harmlessly against the human shield. No damage, but it was a clear sign. Reed took a deep breath. "Send them a message," he ordered. "We will not retreat. Any further aggression will be met with firm defense." The Valorans ignored it. They believed humans were bluffing. Moments later, another bolt came, this one aimed closer. Reed gave the command. "Target the weapon systems of the lead ship." Non-lethal fire. Human cannons glowed blue. In perfect coordination, beams of light struck the Valoran vessel, disabling its weapons but leaving the hull intact. The Valoran ship spun out of control, sparks lighting its surface. The rest of the Valoran fleet paused in surprise. Never before had anyone fought them without trying to destroy them. The precision of human fire confused them. Reed said quietly, "Show them that mercy has strength." Back on Ketra, the night sky lit with silent flashes. The Ketrans gathered outside their shelters, watching the colors move across the heavens. They had seen war before, but this looked different, controlled, measured, like a dance of light rather than destruction. Mira closed her eyes and whispered, "They fight not to kill but to protect." Tom, standing beside her, smiled faintly. "That's the human way now." The standoff lasted through the night. Finally, the Valoran commander appeared again on the main screen. His tone had changed slightly, not anger, but disbelief. You fight with restraint," he said. "Why? You could destroy us," Reed answered calmly. "Because we're not here to rule. We're here to remind the galaxy that mercy does not mean surrender. You may fear the strong, but one day you'll learn to respect the just." Varen's eyes flashed with confusion. He ended the call without a word. Moments later, the Valoran fleet retreated slightly, forming a new position farther from Ketra. It wasn't defeat, but caution. They were beginning to realize the humans were not like any enemy they had faced. 2 days passed. Human engineers built orbital shields to protect Ketra from future attacks. Supplies from Earth continued to arrive. Medical kits, food, and energy modules. The Ketrans began rebuilding small homes near the coast. Children played again, their laughter echoing faintly through the air. For the first time in years, the planet felt alive. Mira often visited the human camp. She learned simple words of their language. She liked how humans spoke. Direct, honest, filled with warmth even when they disagreed. One evening, she asked Reed, "Will you leave when we are safe?" Reed looked toward the horizon. "We will stay until peace can stand on its own. Mercy without strength is fragile. You must learn to protect yourselves too." Mira nodded. "Then teach us." And so training began. Human instructors showed the Ketrans how to build shields, signal systems, and defense drones, not to attack, but to safeguard. The Ketrans were slow to learn, but eager. Every small success brought smiles and new hope. But peace never comes without challenge. Late one night, alarms echoed across the fleet. The Valorans were back, this time with reinforcements, twice the size of before. Their ships filled the dark sky like a rising storm. Lonnie ran to the bridge. "Commander, they're powering weapons again." Reed stared at the incoming formation. He knew this was coming. The Valorans would not accept defeat without trying to prove their power. He pressed a button to open the intercom across all human ships. His voice was calm but strong. "Crew of Earth's fleet, remember why we are here? We do not fight for conquest. We fight for those who believed mercy still exists in this galaxy. Hold the line. Protect Ketra. Show them that humanity's heart is stronger than any weapon." Every pilot, engineer, and officer nodded silently. The engines flared brighter. The ships took new positions, ready but not aggressive. From the surface, the Ketrans watched as human ships formed an unbreakable shield across their sky. Mira placed her hands together, whispering a quiet prayer not just for safety, but for the humans who had brought light to their dark world. Above, the first signs of battle began to glow again. This time the galaxy would watch and remember. The dark sky of Ketra burned with quiet light as two fleets faced each other among the stars. On one side, the United Earth Defense Fleet, calm, silent, and steady. On the other, the massive armada of the Valoran Dominion, their ships sharp and cold like floating blades. Every Ketran could feel it. The air on their world trembled softly as the tension above grew heavier. Yet when they looked up, they saw the blue glow of human ships forming a wall between them and danger. Commander Reed stood on the bridge of his flagship, Solar Dawn. He watched the monitors that displayed the Valoran movement. Dozens of red lights blinked closer. "Status of the fleet?" he asked. Captain Lonnie replied, her hands moving quickly over the console. "All units in position. Shield levels at full. Civilian shelters on Ketra confirmed secure." Reed nodded slowly. "They're coming again. Let's remind them what mercy means." High above the planet, the Valoran fleet adjusted formation. Their ships began to pulse with energy. Their leader, Commander Varen, stared at the humans through his visor. He could not understand them. Why did these creatures fight without seeking control? Why protect strangers with no reward? To the Valorans, strength was always tied to dominance. But the humans seemed to fight for something invisible, something stronger than fear. "Prepare main batteries," Varen ordered. "We will end their illusion of peace." The first wave came without sound. Energy beams crossed the void, bright and endless. Human shields shimmered under the impact, glowing blue and gold. "Shields holding," Lonnie reported. "Minimal damage." "Return fire. Disable, don't destroy," Reed commanded. The human fleet answered with light. Their shots were careful and precise. Instead of aiming for engines or reactors, they targeted weapon systems and control towers. One by one, Valoran ships lost their power and drifted helplessly. Across the galaxy, the battle was being watched by hidden observers, traitors, smugglers, and free worlds that feared the Valorans. They saw what humanity was doing and whispered in amazement. "They fight with mercy," someone said across a distant relay. "No one has ever done that before." On the surface of Ketra, the people gathered outside their shelters. The ground shook softly as energy flared above the clouds. Children clung to their parents while Mira and Tom stood near the edge of a hill, watching the sky. Mira whispered, "They fight for us." Tom nodded. "And for something more. For the idea that kindness can still survive in a cruel galaxy." The Ketrans had never seen war before, not like this. There was no chaos, no uncontrolled rage, only precision and purpose. Every movement of the human fleet spoke of discipline and unity. Inside Solar Dawn, alarms blinked across the command deck. One of the smaller Earthships, Vanguard 6, had taken a direct hit to its shield generator. "Vanguard 6 requesting support," Lonnie reported. "They're losing power." Send drones for shield extension, Reed ordered instantly. Protect them. 2 support ships moved quickly, linking their shields to the damaged vessel. The formation adjusted like a living wall. No human ship was left behind. Watching from her observation seat, a young officer named Arya whispered to herself, "They fight like one heart." Reed heard her words but said nothing. He only looked at the screen where the Valoran fleet kept pressing forward. In the enemy command ship, Varen grew restless. "They could destroy us, yet they don't. Why?" His second officer replied carefully, "Perhaps they want to teach us." Varen's claws tightened on the console. "Teach us?" The Dominion bows to no one. But deep inside, doubt began to form. The human's strange strategy unsettled him. He had fought many enemies, but never one that refused to hate. Hours passed. The stars were filled with fire and light. Still, the human fleet held its line. The Ketrans watched from below, hearts pounding. Then suddenly, several Valoran ships broke formation and descended toward the planet. They wanted to strike Ketra directly, to force the humans to defend the ground. "Commander," Lonnie said quickly, 3 enemy ships heading for the surface." Reed's voice stayed calm. "Deploy interceptor units. No harm must reach the planet." Small human fighters launched from their carriers like streaks of silver. They moved fast, weaving through enemy fire. In the clouds of Ketra, they caught the Valoran ships before they could reach the cities. Laser beams flashed in the mist. The sky turned bright for a moment, then quiet again. The enemy ships were disabled and fell gently into the ocean below, engines dead but hulls intact. From the hills, the Ketrans saw it all. Cheers rose across the valleys. Children laughed for the first time in many years. Mira felt tears on her face. "They didn't destroy the ships," she said in wonder. "Even now they show mercy," Tom smiled. "That's the message they want the stars to see." Back on Solar Dawn, the battle was reaching its final stage. The Valoran flagship was losing power. Several of their ships had retreated. Reed looked at the main screen, then turned to Lonnie. "Open a channel. I want to speak to their commander." A moment later, the face of Commander Varen appeared again, tired and frustrated. Smoke rose behind him. Reed spoke slowly and clearly. "This battle can end now. We have no wish to destroy you. Leave Ketra in peace and you will not be harmed." Varen stared at him for a long time. "You fight with mercy. You could have ended us. Why hold back?" Reed's voice was calm but firm. "Because strength without compassion is only fear, and fear dies faster than courage." Varen said nothing. Behind him, his officers looked uncertain, confused by the words. Finally, Varen turned his gaze downward. "Perhaps we have misunderstood power," Reed replied softly. "Perhaps now you understand what mercy truly looks like." The connection closed. Minutes later, the Valoran ships turned away from Ketra. One by one, they jumped into faster-than-light travel, leaving the system behind. The stars grew quiet again. For a moment, no one on Solar Dawn spoke. The silence felt sacred. Then applause broke across the decks. Officers smiled, engineers cheered softly, and relief filled every corner of the ship. Reed allowed himself a small smile. "Send word to the fleet. We stand down. Begin recovery operations. Let's help our friends rebuild." Lonnie nodded, her eyes shining. "Yes, Commander." On the surface, the Ketrans watched as the human ship slowly descended, their engines lighting the night sky with soft gold. The people gathered in the city square, waiting for the humans to arrive. Mira stood among them, holding a small blue flower, the last one that survived the occupation. When Reed's shuttle landed, she stepped forward. He removed his helmet and smiled gently. The air was warm, filled with the scent of new life. Mira held out the flower. "This world thanks you, Commander. We asked for mercy, and you came with strength and kindness both." Reed took the flower carefully. "Mercy without action is just a word," he said. "You gave us the chance to prove it." The Ketrans bowed their heads. Around them, human medics and engineers began helping to rebuild the damaged streets. The air hummed with quiet energy, not from machines but from hope. Days passed. Human and Ketran teams worked side by side. The people of Ketra learned quickly. They built new power grids, communication towers, and defensive systems. Mira visited the human camp often, asking questions and watching their teamwork. "Your people work like one family," she said to Tom. He nodded. "That's how we survived our past." We fight only when we must, but we never stop standing together. Her eyes softened. Perhaps that is what real power means, Tom smiled. Maybe so. In orbit, Reed watched the planet below from his command deck. The blue oceans looked brighter now. The burned areas were beginning to heal. Captain Lonnie approached quietly. We've received transmissions from nearby colonies, she said. Other worlds have heard what we did here. They're asking for guidance, Reed nodded slowly. Let them come. We won't rule them. We'll teach them what mercy can do. He turned his gaze back to Ketra and whispered to himself. The galaxy thought mercy was weakness. Soon they'll learn it's the greatest strength of all. And so the first victory of Earth among the stars was not marked by destruction, but by compassion. The humans had shown that even in the darkest places, light could still win across the galaxy. Stories began to spread of the world that asked for mercy and the humans who answered with courage. On Ketra, children grew up telling tales of the blue fleet that came from the stars and taught their people to stand again. And far beyond, in the hidden corners of the universe, other enslaved worlds began to whisper the same words. If you need mercy, call Earth. The stars burned cold and silent above the Valoran dominion. Once those stars had been the eyes of a proud empire that watched over half the galaxy. Now they were witnesses to its slow collapse. The Valorans had ruled for centuries, their fleets shining like silver storms in space, crushing every voice that dared to speak against them. But that age of fear was ending. It began on a quiet world named Ketra, where soft-spoken beings had prayed for mercy. And when no one answered, Earth had come instead. They came not to conquer, but to protect. And that act of mercy had started a fire that no empire could stop. Commander Reed stood inside the war room of the UES Horizon, his eyes fixed on the galaxy map floating in the air. Red lights marked the system still under Valoran control, but the red was fading. Each week another planet joined the growing alliance of free worlds. Humanity had not come to build an empire. They came to destroy one. Beside him stood Mira, the Ketran leader who had once sent the message that reached Earth. She looked at the map with disbelief. It is strange, she whispered. They ruled for so long. I thought they could never fall. Reed nodded slowly. They believed fear would last forever. But fear fades when people see hope. She smiled softly. And humans brought that hope. Reed didn't answer. His eyes were still on the map, but his thoughts were far beyond it. Hope was a dangerous thing. It made people brave, but it also made them desperate. He knew the Velorans would not surrender easily. In the outer sectors, the Veloran fleets gathered. Admiral Taran Vel, one of the last surviving commanders of the Dominion, stood on the bridge of his great flagship, the Virith. His face was calm, but his hands were tight behind his back. He had watched his empire shrink one defeat at a time. The humans were unlike any enemy he had faced. They did not fight to expand, they fought to protect. They used strange tactics, turning asteroids into weapons, hiding in plasma clouds and saving civilians even while under fire. It made no sense to him. Why fight so hard for others? He turned to his officers. The humans will strike soon, he said. They believe they can end us. We will show them what the Dominion truly is. But deep inside, even he felt a shadow of doubt. The humans had broken their fleets, shattered their supply lines, and turned their allies against them. The empire he once believed eternal now felt hollow. Back on Horizon, reports came in. 3 Valoran worlds had surrendered, their leaders asking for protection from humanity. The alliance was growing. Humans worked with other species, sharing food, medicine, and defense systems. Soldiers helped rebuild schools and hospitals on the freed planets. For the first time in centuries, peace seemed possible. But peace had a price. The Valoran Emperor still lived. His fortress world, Virelia, stood at the center of the Dominion, a planet wrapped in metal and shielded by countless guns. No one had ever reached its surface without permission. Reed stared at the data screen showing the planet's defense grid. We can't destroy it, he said. If we use full power, millions of civilians will die. His tactical officer frowned. Then what's the plan, sir? Reed smiled faintly. We surround it, we wait. An empire that starves will surrender faster than one that burns. The siege of Virelia began. Thousands of human and allied ships formed a silent ring around the fortress world. They blocked every trade route, every escape corridor. The Valorans tried to break through, but each attempt ended in defeat. The humans didn't attack. They simply watched, waited, and protected every refugee that tried to flee. Inside the planet, chaos grew. Factories ran out of materials. Citizens began to question their leaders. The Emperor refused to appear in public. His pride would not allow it. Weeks passed. The mighty capital of the Dominion became a prison of its own design. One evening, as Virelia's sky turned crimson from its twin suns, Mira walked into the command center of the horizon. "You could have ended this weeks ago," she said softly. "Why do you wait?" Reed looked at her, his face calm. "Because mercy means control. We could destroy them, but then we'd be no different from them. Let them see what they've built fall apart by their own hands." Mira nodded, her eyes shining. "Humans fight differently. You fight with both your mind and your heart." He smiled faintly. "That's the only way we know how." Inside the fortress palace of Virelia, Emperor Darthan Velor stood before a giant window watching the stars. Once he had believed himself to be the master of them. Now every star seemed to shine with judgment. His advisors begged him to negotiate, but he refused. "I do not kneel before humans," he said coldly. "They are new to the stars. They do not understand the power of empire." But when the lights in the palace began to flicker, when the last food shipment failed to arrive, even he began to feel the fear he once used to control others. That night, the Emperor sent a single message to the humans. "We wish to speak." Reed stood in the communications chamber as the holographic image of the Emperor appeared. Darthan Velor's once golden robes looked dull, and his proud face was lined with exhaustion. "You came to end my empire," the Emperor said. "Why not destroy me? Why this waiting?" Reed's voice was calm but firm. "Because we are not here for revenge. You ruled through fear. We rule ourselves through choice." "That's something you never understood." The Emperor sneered weakly. "You think mercy makes you strong?" Reed looked straight into his eyes. "No. Mercy shows we can be strong without losing what makes us human." Silence filled the room. The Emperor's gaze dropped. He knew he had lost. Not just the war, but the belief that had built his entire life. When the humans landed on Virelia, they did not come with weapons raised. They came with supplies. Soldiers handed out food to hungry civilians. Engineers repaired power systems. Doctors treated the wounded, Veloran and alien alike. Many Veloran citizens wept. They had been told the humans were monsters, but instead they found compassion. Reed stood on the surface beside Mira, watching the people being helped. "It's over," she said quietly. He nodded. "The Dominion is gone, but its lessons will stay." Mira looked at him. "What will you do now?" He gazed toward the stars. "We'll go home. Earth has always believed that mercy should have a voice. Now the galaxy has heard it." News spread across the stars faster than light. The Veloran Dominion had fallen, not to destruction, but to humanity's endurance and mercy. Worlds once enslaved now rose in freedom, their skies clear for the first time in centuries. In the following months, the United Earth Fleet helped create the Galactic Peace Accord, where all freed species could share knowledge and trade. The galaxy began to heal. On Ketra, a new monument was built. It showed a simple image, a Ketran and a human soldier standing side by side looking at the stars. Below it were words carved in shining stone. "We asked for mercy, and they sent warriors." As the fleet prepared to leave the Veloran systems, Mira came to the docking bay to say goodbye. "Humans changed everything," she said softly. "The galaxy will never forget," Reed smiled. "We didn't come to be remembered. We came because someone asked for help. That's enough." When the horizon lifted off, its engines left a trail of blue light that cut across the night sky. The Ketrans watched until it faded. Above the quiet planet, the stars shone brighter than ever before. And somewhere among them, humanity traveled onward. Not as conquerors, not as rulers, but as protectors who had proven that mercy, when carried by courage, could reshape the stars themselves. The stars above Ketra were calm now. No warships burned across the sky. No beams of energy tore through clouds. The blue glow of Earth's fleet had disappeared over the horizon, leaving the Ketrans with their world, damaged, but alive. Commander Reed and his crew had returned to orbit for the final time. From above, the planet looked peaceful. Trees were slowly regrowing, rivers were clear again, and the cities were being rebuilt brick by brick. Humans had left behind engineers, doctors, and teachers to help, but they knew this was a moment for the Ketrans to learn strength for themselves. Mira stood on a small hill near the coast. watching the ships disappear into the night. Children played nearby, their laughter soft and bright. It was the first time she had heard pure joy on Ketra in decades. "They are gone," an elder whispered beside her. "And yet, I do not feel fear. Only hope," Mira smiled. "They showed us that hope is not fragile. It is strong when shared." On the surface, human engineers worked with Ketron teams to set up energy grids and communication networks. They taught them how to build defensive shields that could protect the cities from attacks, not to fight, but to preserve peace. Tom, a young human technician, stood beside a group of Ketron children. "See," he said, holding a small crystal device. "This can alert us if danger comes near. But we use it only to protect. You can choose peace, but be ready if it's threatened." The children nodded eagerly, touching the device with fascination. Even in simple tools, they learned lessons of safety, responsibility, and teamwork. Mira watched them and felt pride. Her people had survived centuries of oppression. Now they could stand tall again, not with weapons alone, but with knowledge and courage. In orbit, Commander Reed held a meeting with his fleet captains. They had completed the mission. No major battles remained. The Velaran forces had withdrawn completely. "Report," Reed said. Captain Lani spoke first. "All liberated worlds are stable. Infrastructure projects are progressing. Civilians are safe. No further conflicts detected." Reed nodded slowly. "Good. Our job was not to destroy, but to protect. That is done. Now we leave them to live, to grow, to heal." One of the captains hesitated. "Sir, the galaxy will notice what we've done. They may want us to lead." Reed's eyes were calm. "Leadership comes in many forms. We do not rule. We teach, we protect. That is enough." Back on Ketra, Mira walked through a newly rebuilt city center. People were opening small markets again. Children ran through the streets laughing, their voices echoing through the restored buildings. She approached a small square where a monument was being erected. The stone was polished, smooth, and shining. On it, an image was carved, a human and a Ketran standing side by side facing the stars. Below, simple words were inscribed. "We ask for mercy, and they sent warriors." Mira placed a small flower at the base. "May this always remind us," she whispered, "that strength and kindness can exist together." Far beyond Ketra, other worlds were hearing the story of Earth's warriors. Free colonies, formerly under Valoran control, began to unite. They sent messages asking for advice, guidance, and help in rebuilding. Humanity responded not as rulers, but as partners. Earth had proven a simple truth. Power alone does not protect. Wisdom, courage, and mercy combined could change the course of history. On one distant planet, a child asked her parents about the humans. "Why did they come?" Her mother replied softly, "Because someone asked for mercy, and they believed it was worth the stars to answer." The child smiled, dreaming of distant lights and brave strangers who had crossed space for peace. On Ketra, Commander Reed walked through a newly built human outpost. Soldiers were packing their supplies, ready to return home. They had spent months teaching, building, and protecting, and now their work was complete. Reed paused beside Lani, looking at the horizon where the sun was rising over the ocean. "It is quiet now," he said. Lani nodded. "Quiet but alive. They will be safe." "Not just safe," Reed said. "Strong. They've learned how to protect themselves. Mercy is only truly powerful when paired with understanding and preparation." She smiled. "And they will remember you." He shook his head gently. "I hope they remember the lesson, not the messenger. That is the gift of mercy. It is not about who gives it. It is about who receives it and how they use it." Mira approached him then, carrying a small box. "We want to give you something," she said. She opened it to reveal a shining crystal, carved with symbols of Ketra's history. "It is our thanks," she said, "not just for saving us, but for showing what mercy can be." Reed accepted it with quiet respect. "Then it will remind us all," he said, "that no one is too small to ask for help and no one is too strong to answer it." Months passed. The Ketrans rebuilt cities, re-established schools, and restored forests. Children learned to read, write, and explore, carrying the lessons of cooperation and courage. Adults learned from humans how to balance care with caution, freedom with responsibility. The story of Earth's intervention spread across the stars, told in quiet whispers and public records alike. Every liberated world added its own memories of humans who came not to dominate, but to save. On Ketra, Mira told the story to young students. Humans crossed the stars to answer a single message, she said. They did not fight to rule us, they fought to protect us. And that is how the galaxy learned that kindness can be stronger than fear. The children listened with wide eyes, imagining the blue ships in the sky, the soft courage of humans, and the shining strength of mercy. In orbit above Ketra, the last human ships prepared to depart. Reed stood on the observation deck of Horizon, looking down at the planet below. It was alive, vibrant, and free. He thought of the message that had started it all, the small, desperate plea of a planet asking for mercy. He smiled quietly. It had traveled across space and humanity had answered. Not because it was easy, but because it was right. The fleet began to jump to faster than light travel, one by one. The Ketrans watched as the sky returned to its quiet stars, knowing that humans had changed their world forever. Before leaving, Reed sent one final transmission to the Ketrans. We do not come as rulers. We do not ask for thanks. We only hope you remember that courage, wisdom, and mercy are stronger together than fear and power alone. Protect your world. Protect each other. And never forget that hope can cross even the vastest distance of space. Mira received it, her eyes shining. She replied softly, "We will remember. We will never forget." Across the galaxy, the story continued to spread. Free worlds began to teach one another, trade, and build alliances. The Valoran Dominion no longer ruled, but its lessons lived on. Not the lessons of fear, but of what happens when mercy is stronger than cruelty. On Ketra, children ran through fields once burned, their laughter carried by the wind. Cities stood bright and strong, rebuilt with care. The monument of human and Ketran stood in the central square, shining in the sunlight as a reminder of courage, hope, and mercy. Mira watched, smiling. They came as warriors, she said softly to Tom. But they taught us more than that. They taught us how to live again. Tom nodded, eyes reflecting the sunlit ocean. They came as warriors, yes, but their true strength was their mercy. And that is the greatest story of all. As the last human ships vanished into the stars, a new chapter began, not just for Ketra, but for every world that had watched humanity's example. Hope had returned to the galaxy. Mercy had returned. And humanity's legacy was no longer just on Earth. It was among the stars, remembered wherever courage and kindness found a home. The sky was quiet. The stars were bright, and for the first time in centuries, the galaxy could breathe freely again.